Yes, welcome in, everybody. It's been 84 years, but we have a positive game to talk about. We've got a win to talk about, Jesse. It feels like it's been 84 years. It's only been 1,470 days between ranked wins, but the Badgers take care of Washington 13-10. The students were on the field. I got on the field. An old man was trying to record in the middle of that. It didn't look great, but we have a win to talk about, Jesse.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming for this program. And obviously, one win doesn't solve all the issues facing Wisconsin football, but boy, did everybody need this. Luke Fickell needed it. His staff needed it. Athletic department administrators needed it. And the fans needed it. And even if it wasn't a fully packed house, the people who stuck around were rewarded with a really special moment with people going onto the field. And you could say, oh, a 3-6 team storming the field. You know what? It's been so long since Wisconsin had an opportunity to celebrate something like this that I think everybody earned that opportunity. And I think of a couple things from talking to players after the game. Aaron Witt was talking about how I asked him, what does a night like this do? And he said, it gives everybody hope. And hope is such a powerful thing. And Riley Mahlman, who's been through a lot of crap, as have the upperclassmen, a lot of games that haven't gone their way. Usually he's pretty measured or reserved. And you could see not just relief, but joy that had been missing for so long, because he was talking about, he was being realistic. He said, it got to a point where I didn't know if I was ever going to win another game while wearing a Wisconsin Badgers uniform. And that was a real talking point, because you looked at the schedule, you looked at the performance. And so, again, may not change the fortunes, but it was such an important moment for everybody involved to secure that 13-10 win against Washington.
We are going to dive into all of it. There were tons of positives. We'll hit on those. We are going to have a longer what went right segment today than a what went wrong segment, which also is a first in quite some time. Looking forward to that. We'll also get to your listener questions, which some were positive, mostly positive, which I love. I love to see those. The overreaction or no's, a lot of positives there. So we'll get into all that. Before we do, everyone's favorite time in the show, I remind you that if you are listening, we also have a YouTube channel. Go check it out. Search The Camp. If you want to throw Badgers in there, you'll find it very easily. And subscribe. That really helps us build the show. And if you want the best written coverage for the Badgers and also video as well, I'm not going to, won't sell you short on that one at all. BadgerConnect.com, Jesse.
Yes, got the story up from the win last night, and nice to be able to write something different this time around. I'll say that, because it's been a lot of, it felt like copy and paste moments, but Wisconsin did something special last night.
They did. All right, let's jump into this. What went right? And I thought it was really interesting. You mentioned it there, talking to Aaron Witt and talking to Riley Mahlman, and it was kind of the old guard in our post-game interviews. It was the old guard with Riley Mahlman, Aaron Witt, Ricardo Hallman, Daryl Peterson, and then you had the new guys. You had Gideon Atuka, and you had Mason Posa, and you had Cooper Catalano. And I thought it was really an interesting, like, not just view of it and how this all went, that it took the older guys, but it was the younger guys that really, really stood out and made the big time plays. Gideon got off to a great start, but the performance from the two inside linebackers getting their second starts together, knowing that they maybe have a little bit of a target on their backs after game one, and for them to come out and perform where they did, that has to be, for me, where it starts.
Yes, we can talk big picture, and certainly we will moving forward about what this means. And 2 days after Chris McIntosh publicly announces that he's going to retain Luke Fickell, which Luke addressed. But if we're talking about the actual on-field performance, you have to start with Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano. Before we started recording, I was talking about how in order to do something special for a program, you need superstars. You really do. You can have a bunch of really good college players that may not be NFL caliber, and you can be a good team. But if you want to rise out of the doldrums, you need what you had in Cooper and Mason. And my God, it is so refreshing and entertaining to watch these two guys play. The fact that Cooper Catalano finished with 19 tackles as a true freshman is mind-boggling. And
Yes.
Wisconsin puts out it post game. They provide statistics and historical background. It's the most tackles that anyone at Wisconsin has had since Mike Taylor in 2011 against Ohio State when Taylor had 22. And it's the most tackles a freshman has had. They don't even have the numbers of the last time a freshman had this many tackles. So I'm not sure it's ever happened. Their numbers went back to what, 1995, if I'm not mistaken? Is that
It went
correct?
Yes, it went back since at least 1995, and I almost got home last night and was like, "How do I figure out going even further back?" But 1995 is a ways to go back.
Yes. He's always around the ball. It's not a fluke that you set a high school record in your career in the state of Wisconsin for most tackles. We saw this in spring ball. He was consistently around the ball. Obviously, you had Christian Allegro and Tackett Curtis, and you brought in transfer too. And so it took a while. I know there are people who are saying, well, what took so long? But we're here now. So Cooper deserves all the credit in the world. And Mason is just that dude. Like, if they need a big play, he is there. I mean, you just cannot overstate what it means to have this type of talent. He gets the sack, he forces the fumble, he recovers it at Washington's 7-yard line at a critical moment because Wisconsin is down 10-3. And frankly, when we get to what went wrong, the offense still has plenty of issues. But you give him the ball inside the 10, and Carter Smith in 2 plays scores a touchdown. He gets a touchdown run. The game's tied at 10. All of a sudden, you have momentum and optimism and hope. And when Washington is trying to mount that last drive to crush the souls of Wisconsin, Posa's the one who steps up and gets the sack when the quarterback is scrambling, and Posa finishes with 11 tackles. Those two dudes in the last 2 games and their 2 starts have combined for 51 tackles. That is unbelievable. So absolutely, we've got to start with those 2 guys. And you're talking about optimism and hope for the future. It starts with 2 true freshmen who are balling out in a way that we just have not seen for a long time.
Look, the standard at inside linebacker, and Luke Fickell has actually talked about this. He thinks that he was not talking about these 2 guys, but earlier in the year he was talking about with Christian Allegro and Tackett Curtis, feel really good about those guys and feel like we're going to be back at the standard that has been set here. And the standard is so unbelievably high for inside linebackers at Wisconsin. And we can go back all the way back to the 90s if you want, and maybe even further back than that. But you can talk about some of the guys that have played inside linebacker at Wisconsin and the Pete Monties of the world, which is a guy who I thought maybe had 20 tackles as a freshman. But I'll have to go back and look at that a little bit closer after we get done with the show. But think about that, like those guys, and then really into this last 15 years where you have Mike Taylor and Chris Borland, and into the 3-4 where there are so many names that you could point out with a Jack Sitchie and a Leo Chanel and a Jack Sanborn and a Chris Orr, and just go on down the line. And again, leaving out a lot of guys, but there's so many guys that have set the standard so high. And when you watch these 2 guys play, it feels like that. Again, like I feel horrible for Christian Allegro. He was not playing poorly at all, but to break his arm, that's tough. That's really tough. But it has allowed these 2 guys to play a ton of football, and they've shown that they have to be on the field, that they are the future they are the present and the future of that defense.
Very much so. And that's not to say when Christian is healthy, he won't be a part of it, but you can't take these 2 guys off the field. You just can't. Every time there's a tackle, it felt like Cooper Catalano was around the ball. There's a stretch where I think they called his name every single time, every single snap. And Mason is just, it's even more remarkable when you think about the fact that Mason wasn't even here for spring ball. And Cooper and a lot of other freshmen, that's part of the calculus. I'm going to graduate early so I can get here for spring ball just to give myself a chance, just to give myself a leg up. And Cooper did that, I thought, in the spring, though even in that time, he goes into fall camp and you don't know what his role is going to be. Maybe he's a fringe guy. But Mason had to go win a fourth consecutive state wrestling championship in New Mexico, so he doesn't get here until the summer. And I talked to him earlier this week. I talked to both of them actually, and Mason was talking about he's like I said, did you think you'd be in this position right now, given the fact you didn't practice with the team until fall camp? And he's like, the cocky high school kid in me, like, yeah, absolutely. But when I first got here, I started to realize there's a lot more involved in a college scheme. But his standard is so high because Cooper was saying at a certain point in camp, Mason had already elevated into the second team defense. And Mason was talking to Cooper about like, oh man, like I can't believe I'm with the second team. And Cooper's like, dude, you just got here. But like that is the internal drive, and that is the confidence that a guy like Mason has. And of course, the more opportunity he's gotten, the more he's shown why he should be out on the field. And the same is true for Cooper. So again, a lot of bright spots from Saturday night, but those two were the brightest stars and give you so much optimism for the future at a position that is so important to Wisconsin's defense, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. They are roommates. I know that was mentioned on the telecast. Cooper called him his best friend. Cooper called Mason Posa his best friend. And on the I don't know if you heard this on the telecast. They were talking about when they first showed up, Cooper Catalano was a little unsure of Mason Posa. Wasn't sure, do I like this guy? I don't know if I like this. That felt a little bit dramatic. But they have grown into great friends. And Mason was talking about, we knew we had to have a game. And we knew we were going to have a game because we knew we had to have a game to win this. And we did. And it was just really incredible. And he ended that sentence by saying, we're going to be here for a while. And that journey, I can't wait for it. It's going to be awesome. And that has to be music to fans' ears because we know how often guys move on very quickly, right? And again, he could, at the end of the season, something could happen and he could, we just never know in this college environment. But that is something that when you hear it, it makes you feel good inside because it makes you, if you're a fan, it makes you feel good inside because so often we don't get to see guys' journeys through 3 and 4 years. It doesn't happen anymore for the most part. And for these guys to be playing the way that they're playing early on in their careers in game 9 of their careers and putting together performances like they had the last 2 weeks is special and something that if you're a fan, you want to be able to see that grow and grow and grow. And his words yesterday suggested that that's going to be an opportunity that we're all going to get to see that.
Mason's candor is so refreshing. Oftentimes, as part of this journey, when we cover players, they come in as freshmen and they're a little shy or timid or don't know what to say in the spotlight. And that is not Mason at all. And when I was talking to him earlier in the week, I asked him about just what do you think the performance, because this was coming off the bye week, but the Oregon game, which we're certainly not going to forget, where Mason starts and he has 13 tackles and Cooper has 8 tackles. So that was one of those glimpses where you realized how special they could be. And he said, I love this place. I want to be here. I'm going to be here unless the entire staff gets fired. And then he kind of stopped himself and said, even if they do get fired, I still want to be here. Now, of course, that's who knows, and we're not there because Luke is coming back, but just there's a passion and an appreciation for this place that I think is special with him for a guy who didn't have any ties to Wisconsin. He's from New Mexico. He picked Wisconsin over Oregon and Texas A&M. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to interview somebody like him, but you can also see the swagger that he possesses off the field and how it carries onto the field.
Yes. I mean, he was talking about, I don't know if he broke Dante Moore's nose or whatever happened there, but he goes, yeah, that was pretty cool. The blood being there on the ground. Yeah, that was pretty cool. You don't hear guys talk about it like that. And he also said, like they heard the offensive coordinator talking about them this leading into this week. And like all of a sudden you realize they're game planning for you and they are thinking about you. And he's like, that's pretty cool as well. And then to go out and perform the way they did, just really, really off the charts impressive from both of those guys. And they were a huge, huge reason Wisconsin was able to hold Washington to 10 points, a team that came in averaging 35, a team that is, really good offensively. And they, save for a few plays here and there, couldn't do anything. And those two guys are a big reason. Obviously, the defensive line up front Ben Barton and uh, Suggs, and just add all these other guys in. Mason Riger chasing Williams all over the place all day, and really never making anything comfortable for him. That front seven, I thought, again, I thought they were good against Oregon, even though they gave up some run yardage because I think they got worn down towards the end. They were great yesterday, and I thought that the crowd, as you said, was not full by any stretch. The 71,000 that they said was there is a bit of a joke, but the people that were there and the people that stayed throughout, even after it started to snow and rain and it was just nasty, they gave them some juice. And I think those guys making plays allowed them and allowed the fans to get into that game. They were a huge part of it, I thought, for sure.
Yes, the defense as a whole deserves tremendous credit. Ben Barton gets the block on the field goal on the special teams.
Yep.
And obviously, it's a 3-point game. Wisconsin wins by a field goal, but the only touchdown the defense gave up isn't the defense's fault. Sean West has the punt blocked, and he recovers it at the inch line or whatever. Washington takes over at the 1, and that's how they end up getting the 10-3 lead. There's a 1-yard touchdown pass on a fade route, and Rico Hallman is in coverage. But credit to Rico, he stuck with it. He had a massive interception on a ball that shouldn't have been thrown, or at least
Never. No.
I didn't understand.
Disaster decision by him.
Yes. But Rico gets the pick in the end zone on a deep pass down the right sideline. So they have that. Obviously, we talk about Posa's fumble recovery. It's the first fumble recovery Wisconsin's had all season, and the defense as a whole had not been able to generate enough takeaways to change the game. So, yeah, I mean, they were tremendous. It felt like their quarterback was below average. And yes, there was wind and there was snow, and the weather certainly had to help Wisconsin. But Wisconsin was able to generate consistent pressure, get multiple TFLs, not allow very many big plays. And you look at defense as a whole, they forced 5 punts, I believe. They had 2 turnovers on downs. They had 2 turnovers forced. They blocked the field goal. So they were just great. And I think coming into the season, one of the biggest concerns was we're in year 3 here of Mike Tressel. We've heard a lot of talk. They made these offseason changes. Let's actually see it. And it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't always been consistent. Certainly Iowa and Ohio State were not great performances, and there have been a few other poor performances, but they have improved over time. And if you're looking for a building block or a starting point, that's exactly what you want to see. They've given Wisconsin chances to win games. It's not the defense's fault. The offense has had as much trouble as it has scoring points, but they were outstanding and deserve tremendous credit. And I think Mike Tressel deserves a lot of credit too, because he's the one putting together the schemes. He's taken a lot of criticism, and when things go well, he ought to share in the credit.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just Posa and Catalano getting opportunities among the young guys. They started 3 linebackers, all of them freshmen. Posa, Catalano, and then Thomas Heiberger got in there as well in a role that has been played by Aaron Witt most of the year. And now Aaron Witt did play and played quite a bit as well. But those 3 freshmen started. You saw Kairos Gaines come in on the dime, replacing Catalano. When they would take Catalano off the field, and it was Kairos Gaines coming in and taking his spot. Another true freshman, Emilio Agard, continued to have made a big time play late in the game, a tackle, really strong tackle. Deani Hill, obviously back from injury, so that kind of limited Agard's playing time a little bit. But the freshmen, the young guys, I think that has to be exciting as well. The idea that you have at least something to build on, because again, most of the defensive line is seniors and guys that have played a lot of football, but there's guys here and there that you're potentially going to be able to build off of. Matt Young as well, him getting a ton of time at safety. So there are, and obviously Jameer Latimer as well. It wasn't perfect by any stretch for the defense, but they had so many moments that stood out and jumped out and hit you in the face. That was special. That was special. That was special. And so very exciting. I think if you like some of the core pieces, some of the foundational pieces here.
It was special. And here's another reason why playing the young guys and having those young guys succeed matters, because of what it means for future recruiting classes. And again, I wrote a story on Thursday about the next recruiting class and the conversation they had with Luke Fickell and director of recruiting Pat Lambert on a Zoom call a week before it was announced that Luke was going to be retained. And one of the questions that came up, and one of the reasons those guys have optimism, is they're seeing what a Posa and a Catalano and a Tuca are doing and the opportunities they have to play. And it shows you can come in, you can be a part of that change potentially, but you can get early opportunities. And that is exciting to young players. So the fact that there is actual proof that this is happening matters. So that's another element that I think should be mentioned.
Yeah. Before we flip over to the offense on some of the positives that we saw from that side of the ball, special teams, it did not get off obviously to a good start with the block punt and the missed field goal, but later on, some big time plays. Obviously, you mentioned the blocked field goal. I also thought that they got their hand on a punt, but I don't know if that ended up actually being the case. But it looked like Tyrese Freebury got his hand on one of the punts there would that have been the third quarter that went out of bounds and kind of set Wisconsin up in a good spot. Tyrell Henry back from injury, and he got a couple of nice returns that were allowed Wisconsin to have even better field position. I thought the field position was such a huge part of that game. I mean, how many times did Washington start inside their 5-yard line, or inside their 10, or even just inside the 20, compared to where Wisconsin was starting with the ball on a consistent basis? It was very, very impressive. Atticus Bertram dropping the snap, but then picking up and knocking it, and it was inside the 5. Like, some of those. So many bounces have not gone Wisconsin's way this year, and that one did. And I'm thinking about Vinny Anthony getting hit by the ball, then just being able to drop right on top of it in a situation where it was 13-10. You're like, oh boy, that could have been a disaster. So many things that have gone wrong for them. The ball bounced their way a couple times yesterday.
Yeah, I'm looking at the box score right now from the game. Average field position start per drive, Washington's was its own 25-yard line and Wisconsin's was its own 45-yard line. I mean, that makes all the difference in the world, especially in a one-possession game.
And think about where one of those Washington drives started, on the 1-yard line, right? So if you were to take that off, it probably was even worse. It would be significantly worse, you would think. So, yeah, that was a huge part of the game, and something that Wisconsin has not necessarily done a great job of this year. But giving that offense a short field, and again, 13 points is 13 points. It's not great, but giving them a short field and not making them have to go the distance, especially when in those weather conditions, it was not going to be easy. So offensively, let's go to the offensive side of the ball.
Wait, shout out Sean West. If we're going to talk special teams, he struck.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
you got to. The longest pass play of the game for Wisconsin. What a great call. What a great execution. Sean West with the fake punt throws a 24-yard pass to Jackson Aker, who got a lot more run because Wisconsin's running back situation was a bit of a mess with all the injuries. But second time that he's converted a fake. The first one was backed up. He somehow managed a 20-yard run, which at the time was the second longest run that Wisconsin had this season. So just wanted to shout out that play because it was a big moment.
Yeah, of course. And it was needed, right? Because, and Luke Fickell mentioned it. He goes, yeah, the block punt, that just can't happen. So we needed to get something back on it. And they did with the fake. And you could tell, if you go back and watch it, I think Jackson Aker called it, because he moved around. He was saying stuff to guys. And it was because it looked like they were coming, and they were, and I would too. After you block one of them, why not go try and get another one? And it was a perfect call. And I feel like that might have been a Jackson Aker seeing what they were in, and then making the call. So really, really huge play there. Offensively, the running game was not great, but I would take it, and I think Wisconsin would take it. Getting Tuca over 70 yards again, he, I think, has shown, and we got to see a little bit of Darian Dupree. He was back after his injury. I think, was that Ohio State that he got injured? Maybe it was Iowa. Either way, he was back, but it was clear that getting Tuca was going to be the bell cow, and they gave him the ball a bunch. And I thought, for the most part, he did exactly what they wanted him to do. Ran hard, held on to the ball, and put them in a really good spot to try and have some success. And I thought he was great. I thought he was really good again, and I think it's become clear that he should have been playing probably more earlier in the year, but he's taking advantage of his opportunities now.
Yeah, he did exactly what they needed him to do. He runs with power. He's got nice burst. And the thing that I like so much about him is his ability to push the pile forward because of
Yeah.
his physicality. He's 5'9", but he's a bowling ball. He's 220 plus. So it felt like when you needed yardage, you gave him the ball. And there were some situations where I was, and of course, it's easy to question when you're not in the booth calling the plays, but I'm just like, why won't you give him the ball, or why are you attempting to throw in a second and medium when it feels like you can at least churn out a handful of yards by giving him the ball? But ultimately it worked out for Wisconsin. But I think Atuka certainly has shown that he is worthy of getting more opportunities. This is now consecutive games. And just to continue on the what went right for the offense, because we're going to get into the what went wrong, but I just think the fight and the tenacity that those guys showed in an absolute grind of a game should be credited. Carter Smith, who we have not talked about yet, obviously struggling to throw the ball. Perhaps that is not his forte. It's a really tough spot to go into when, based on the sounds of it, he didn't get reps that were meaningful in the sense of he could play until the bye week. So week and a half ago for a true freshman. Then he has to come in after Danny O'Neal gets hurt on that 21-yard run, which feels like Badgers quarterbacks are cursed. And he gave them a spark. He immediately has a quarterback run for a 9-yard gain. He pulled the ball and kept it a lot, and there were certainly issues in the passing game, but he has such toughness. And I think there was something to be said for the way the guys rallied around him and understood what kind of game this was going to be. It was very clear early that it was not going to be one with big plays through the air. But he just stuck with it. And I wrote about this when he signed, or when he committed to Wisconsin, that his high school coach in Florida said he's got the mentality of a linebacker. And that's exactly what we saw in his first opportunity to play. He seeks out contact, may not be the smartest, but that's how he plays. And that's why he is able to succeed. And so you're right. The running numbers, at least yards per carry, they weren't great, but they did enough. And they just found a way. And for so long, that has not been the case at Wisconsin. And so I think that is worth pointing out as well.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that the offense did that it has not done a great job of in this 6-game stretch is they didn't turn the ball over. And that, to me, when you are so, I mean, let's be fair about it. There was not going to be a lot of passing from Carter Smith yet. That is still obviously a huge and significant work in progress. But he didn't put the ball in harm's way too often. I believe there was the one screen that looked almost very similar to the Iowa one where Hunter Simmons threw it right to the Iowa defensive lineman and he picked it off. There was that one play that looked very familiar, but he ended up not catching it. But other than that, for the most part, did not put the ball in any kind of harm's way. And when you don't do that, you give yourself a significant chance. Them winning the turnover battle has not happened this year at all. I mean, as you mentioned, it was their first forced fumble, and I should say first recovery of a fumble this year. They not only forced, I think, 1 or 2 coming into the game. They were one of 3 teams without a fumble recovery in the country. They had 3 interceptions on the year or maybe it was 4, and then that one was 5. They have not forced turnovers at all, which has made their own turnovers so drastic and so noticeable. Didn't do it yesterday, and that to me is as big as anything. If you're looking at Carter Smith, yes, the offense, not like they moved up and down the field, but I have to give him credit for that in his first start because he was not expected to obviously play that much.
Yes,
right. He came into the game with no expectations of exactly what it was going to look like. So it's going to be Danny O'Neal. It's going to be his game. Certainly, he was the next guy in. He was standing right next to Kenny Guyton on the sideline. But once he got in, a few little butterflies here or there. Thought he settled in and just gave some juice. I think him and Danny O'Neal are similar in that respect. They play with a chip on their shoulder and they play with some fire and passion, and I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said this to you in the press box, but it sort of felt like if you knew those were going to be your top two quarterbacks, you could game plan similarly because they have similar skill sets. Because a lot of what Danny was doing before he got hurt was getting outside the pocket and making something happen with his legs. And that obviously is Carter's strength. And also, I think what went right, I think Hunter Simmons deserves some credit here as well, because it's a weird spot to be in, right? He's gone from starter to the third string to starter to third string again, but they hadn't completed a single pass. And there was a time where they had like 97 yards rushing and 0 yards passing. And I put out there, like, I honestly don't know if Wisconsin is going to finish with any passing yards this game. But he goes in there and immediately, boom, you can see why they started him at least for a month. And Danny O'Neil had been apparently nursing an Achilles injury over time. And he gave him a 4-yard pass. He completed a couple throws, and that drive was wrecked because you had an illegal man downfield by an offensive lineman, and then you had an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Atuka, I believe, and that took you out of the potential for field goal range. But just the quarterback carousel in the room as a whole, staying ready, I think that matters. And maybe this is more than what went wrong, but one of the stats that Wisconsin put out there in the little packet that speaks to how insane this year has been is that with Carter Smith going in there, it's the first time that Wisconsin has had 4 quarterbacks attempt or complete passes since 1988, the Don Morton years. That happens because you have catastrophic injuries in your quarterback room. But just credit to all of those guys for staying ready and playing their part when they were asked to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else on the offensive side of the ball that we haven't talked about?
Do we credit the offensive line to a degree just for everything that they've been through? Again, it's not like it was great, and it's not like statistically this is going to enhance Wisconsin into not being one of or the worst Power 4 offenses in the country. But they should be, I suppose, credited in that process for grinding it out. And the running backs and Jackson Aker, who was really thrust into, like, okay, Darian Dupree came back, yeah, but didn't get a lot of reps. So Jackson was kind of the backup running back there and playing fullback and doing a lot of different things. So just spreading the wealth around, I suppose.
Yeah, Jackson got 3 touches. Darian got 3 touches, but Jackson Aker also led the team in receiving with 3 catches for 27 yards. I believe 24 that came on 1, but yes, look, the offensive line does deserve it because no one respected the pass whatsoever. Like, there'd be no. Why would you respect the pass? There's zero reason to respect it based on some of what we'd seen. And maybe they didn't know that about Carter Smith, but they probably found it out pretty quickly, figured it out pretty quickly. So yeah, I'll give credit to the offensive line for, some of the stuff that they did. There are certainly some plays that I would point at and be like, yeah, that wasn't great. But yeah. Question for you before. Go ahead. No, you go first.
Well, I was going to say Jeff Grimes too. Like, we haven't spent a ton of time this year talking about him. And I know that I've said before, like, hard to evaluate the play calling when you have that type of talent out on the field and all those types of things. Significantly hamstrung in terms of the ability to call an offense when you honestly don't know if you're going to be able to complete a forward pass. I thought they showed enough inventiveness to move the ball. Maybe not consistently, but I mean, I think if they set up a play where they did a toss to Gideon Atuka, I want to say 3 times. And then there's another situation where Carter Smith takes the snap and he fakes the toss and he ends up getting a nice gain. And so I just, a lot of jet sweep action. It's a lot of those things, but I just think given how hamstrung he was in terms of play calling, to be inventive enough to help them move the ball is worth mentioning as well.
Absolutely. Quick question for you. Carter Smith, the facial hair, that feels like a little Civil War-ish to me.
I couldn't help but think when he was talking to us, and that, of course, it's the first time he's talked to the group of reporters this season, that, man, this dude, he doesn't look, act, or talk like a freshman. He's been in the spotlight for a while, but yeah, very mature, true freshman, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's jump into what went wrong. I would just like to let everybody know that was 35 minutes of what went right. So we'll jump in here to what went wrong. And we've talked about a number of the things that went wrong. the block punt that set up that first touchdown. Luke Fickell said that can't happen. That can't happen. I can't believe that happened. That's on me. And when you look at it, they just were not prepared at all. It was they overloaded that side and came through very, very easily to block that punt. It's the second block punt that they've had this year. I think it's the third or fourth block kick that they've had this year. If you count you count the field goals as well, that was really really bad. Obviously, Nathaniel Vakos missing that 48-yard field goal to begin the game, tough as well. So special teams certainly stood out early with some of those mistakes. But I'll let you either expand on that or jump into some other stuff. I think we've talked about the blocks a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is the lack of a passing offense right now,
Yeah.
and it's such a struggle. And I think we're also at a point where we're evaluating what do these things mean for the future, and it's like I don't know how you can feel confident in terms of being able to have a consistent and balanced offense with what we've seen. The three quarterbacks combined to complete 5 of 17 passes for 24 yards, which is as many passing yards in the entire game as Sean West had on his fake punt. And Danny O'Neal didn't get a ton of opportunity to throw before he got hurt. Hunter Simmons was able to complete a couple of passes, and certainly it's a really difficult spot for Carter Smith to come in. Your first college action, you're coming in cold. Maybe you think you're going to have a role, but you don't think on the ninth play you're the guy. But he completed 3 of 12 passes for 8 yards. I mean, he had a 5-yard completion. He had a completion that went for -5 yards, and then an 8-yard completion. And there was a play on the TV broadcast that they showed the replay, and you could see Jaden Ballard streaking down the field, and he's wide open. And they have the camera angle just on Jaden, and he is looking back, and he is just jumping up and down, like, dude, how can you miss me? And again, it's really hard at full speed when you're chased out of the pocket and you're trying to scan the field, but they just have no downfield passing threat. Not having Billy Edwards Jr. certainly doesn't help, and he was out again, and his status for the next 3 games is, it seems unlikely we're going to see him this season. But I just, if you're thinking about what this quarterback room is going to be in the future, you need more dynamic passing ability. So the fact that it was what it was and Wisconsin still won is frankly unbelievable. And Wisconsin's 48 passing yards were its fewest in a win since 2014 against Nebraska. And you know why the Badgers won that game? Because they had a guy named Melvin Gordon run for 408 yards in 3 quarters.
I thought you were asking that.
Oh, well, you were there. I think you know.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But it's been a struggle all season. And I know that there have been a lot of talk about, okay, let Carter Smith play. And it became clear after the bye week, okay, he's not losing a red shirt. What do you have to lose? But clearly, he just doesn't right now give them a ton in the passing game. And that's why they brought Hunter Simmons in late in the second quarter. And frankly, it's why Hunter started all of October, I think. And of course, it was really challenging. But that needs to be better.
When they evaluate this game and they see the struggles throwing the ball, what is the answer then against Indiana?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because obviously Danny O'Neal is not going to play, and we know unlikely that the same goes for Billy Edwards. So they're down to 2. One can't throw it. The other one can't. The other one, the last time he started 1 for 12. So he can't. If we're being fair, he can't necessarily throw it either. At least be on a consistent basis. But we can see the ball come out of his hand, and it looks good. It doesn't always go where it's supposed to go, but it looks good. So that is, I think that's going to be a very tough question. But if I'm Indiana, I don't think it really matters who the quarterback is. I'm getting after that offensive line and getting after that front every single play.
Yeah, Indiana is its own challenge, which we'll get to during the week. Right now it's Sunday, and so it's not like Wisconsin has gone extensively into the game plan. But I would say I think it would make sense to utilize both of them in some capacity, just to mix it up a little bit, just because I think you have a sense of what you're going to get from Carter. And yeah, the weather sucked. It was his first opportunity. And maybe if you go into a week and you're going to be the guy, that can change some things. But I'd say you've got to have a plan where you feel like you could potentially utilize both of them, whatever that may look like.
Yeah. A couple more things. One more. Well, I kind of mentioned this when we were talking about the offensive line, but there were a couple plays that stood out, just being like, "What the hell, guys?" The one was Colin Cumberly being downfield by about 15 yards and getting called for it. I believe that was right before the half, right, when they were trying to either trying to get. I mean, I think they were trying to get into field goal range, but that one was comical. Uh, the other one was, I think, an early snap by Davis Heinzen, because I don't think anybody was ready for it. But the other three of the other four guys moved. One guy did not. That would be Emerson Mandel. He may still be in his stance as we sit here and talk about it on Sunday morning. That's the one where the guy came right around and forced the fumble on Carter Smith. He was able to recover it. But those were a couple plays for the offensive line. I was just like, those are first year guys. Those are freshmen. And like, I don't know what Emerson Mandel was doing. Like, he was just going to stay there. Just what what was the plan there? I know it's a split second thing, but everyone else is moving and you're still just chilling in your stance for another second. It was funny, and we can look back on it and laugh because it didn't end up killing them at all, but it certainly was comical in the moment. Anything else you got anything else?
Nah, I mean, the ratio of what went right to what went wrong was as strong in the positive direction as I think we've had in definitely this year.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. All right, let's jump into some of the questions that I got, and not as many questions as we normally get because they won, but there
Not as
are a
much
lot of
fire and brimstone with the pitchforks out.
yeah, a lot of people were like, "Is this the first time that a team has won in the Big Ten with their punter being their leading passer?" I have to imagine it's probably one of the first times, right?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers on that one, but it is a highly unusual way to win and just a weird game all around.
This one also was very often asked. Do you remember how to podcast when the team you cover wins? I feel like we've done an okay job.
Yeah. It's been a while, and I thought it was interesting because we cover these people and we talk to them a lot, especially during the season. And when things finally go right, I think they can acknowledge, like, Luke Fickell talked about it when he starts to sit up at the dais, like, he's smiling. It was like, nice to see you guys smiling too. And again, like, as someone who tries to be objective and impartial and report on what's happening, like, I say this all the time, you root for the story, right? Whatever may happen, but it's not fun. Like, we don't relish coming on here and hammering Wisconsin every week for not being a good team, and writing those stories is a bit of a challenge. And so Ricardo Hallman talked about it too when he was talking to us. Like, I know, like, it sucked for us. I know how much it sucks for you guys to have to report on that stuff. So it is a nice change of pace. And again, gives people hope and optimism, and this is possible.
Yes, and you say you root for the story, which is a very common refrain among your peers. You've told the story of how bad they've been, how many
Yes.
times, right? Like, how many more times can you tell that same story? This gives you a little bit something different to work with, and I think that is good for everybody. Everybody. We've talked about it a lot. Not fun to cover. Not fun to consistently have to talk about a team being horrible, and so finding a way to win that game, huge for many reasons, including our sanity. Tom says, why did the staff wait too long to give significant snaps to freshmen like Catalano, Posa, Smith, Atuka,
I
etc.?
know that's certainly a question that's come up, and it's because they felt like the people who were in front of them when they were healthy were in a better position to contribute right now. And we saw flashes from all of those guys, really. It's just that when we saw Atuka, it would be with the reserves. And I think if everybody was healthy early in the season, it was hard to say Atuka should be ahead of Darian Dupree and Dylan Jones, and even Katie Yakimelli for what he gave them off the field. And statistically, none of those guys really stood out early in the season. And sometimes it takes something like this to happen. It takes injuries to give someone an opportunity. The Posa and Catalano ones, I mean, it did take a while, but like Tackett Curtis has been overtaken. It took an injury to Christian Allegro for both of them to be able to play. Um, Sometimes this is just what it takes. And you, based on what you've seen, would have liked to have seen it happen earlier, but at least it's happened. And you're not going to see Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano taken off the field much moving forward, I have to imagine.
Teddy says, could this actually be a turning point?
So this is such a hard question to answer because it doesn't change the fact that Wisconsin has to go play the number 2 team in the country, and that if the Badgers lose one more game, they're not going to a bowl because of the spot they're in. There is that hope and optimism. And when I wrote about this, I said it had to be the happiest 3-6 program in America just because of where they'd been and having lost 6 games in a row. Maybe because you needed something on tape. You needed to experience this to point to guys and say, your hard work is paying off for something. Because Luke talked about this after the game too. He said he believes you get what you deserve, and he felt like they were putting in so much. And so for everybody to experience this matters significantly. It doesn't change the issues that the offense has, but it does show you that if you band together and you fight, you can give yourself a chance. For Luke, and we haven't really addressed this, but huge for him. And I know that even if they had lost, he's guaranteed to be back next year based on the comments that Chris McIntosh put out. But you could just see what this meant to him. And when he was talking about him being appreciative of Chris fighting his battles, he's like, it makes him uncomfortable. The competitor that he is, he doesn't want another adult to fight his battles off the field, but that was the spot that he found himself in. So just a huge weight off everybody's shoulders. And maybe it can be a turning point, but it's just hard for me to say that suddenly Wisconsin is going to go on a heater here and everything this season is going to change.
One game is not a turning point. You need to build off of this game, just like you needed to build off the performance at Oregon. You needed to build off of that. Something that I feel like they've struggled to do that throughout these last 3 years, is to build on confidence, build on stuff that goes well. Like we go back to the Michigan game. That was a tight game. Obviously, they gave up a bunch of yards, but it was a tight game for the most part. 24-10. They scored first. They fought, and then the next week they come back and get blown out by Iowa. They get shut out by Iowa. They get shut out by Ohio State. They did not make any progress. They did not build off the good. This is an opportunity to maybe build off the good for a third straight week, even though you know what you're walking into next week in Bloomington against a team that just barely stayed unbeaten, but we know is really, 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 really good. And perhaps this week for them was a wake-up call. Like, we got to lock in. You can't just be rolling out there just because you're undefeated. People are going to be coming for you. And Penn State almost got them. So they need to build on it. Whether this is a turning point or not, it's a huge win. Maybe it's his 92 Ohio State, or maybe it's, something from, I think Don Morton beat Ohio State in 87. And obviously it was not something that jump-started anything. So there are opportunities. I mean, this has a chance to be important and special and a turnaround, but only if you build on it, only if you maintain and continue to play with the type of vigor, I guess I would say, that they played with last night.
Yeah. If nothing else, this was the most significant and consequential win of Luke Fickell's tenure, which speaks to the fact that there haven't been very many. But what have we been saying all year? What was his most significant win? And you really had to look. And it was the regular season finale in 2023 against a Minnesota team that finished 5-7 and only went to a bowl game on the strength of its academics progress rate. Now, getting the axe is a huge deal, but you had basically beaten nobody who was halfway decent. Coming into the year, they were 3-11 against teams that finished the season with a winning record. And one of the wins was against an FCS team, and the other two were against mediocre Rutgers teams. So you finally beaten a ranked team. Luke was 0-10 against ranked opponents at Wisconsin. So even if the next 3 weeks don't go your way, you have something to point to, which you just haven't had your entire time here.
Yeah. Do you want to say hi to Hank?
What's up, Hank? Thanks for joining.
Huge fan of the camp. He goes in the other room every time I start talking. Paul says it's clear Carter Smith is not an effective passer, and that is why he wasn't playing. Can he develop, or are we back to the drawing board for QB next year?
Well, I
Especially,
don't want. Yeah,
especially now with Danny O'Neil and that injury appearing to be very serious,
yeah.
and who would know his status for next year. But go ahead. Sorry.
I don't want to define a quarterback by one game. At the same time, I think what we saw is indicative of what he can provide. It's a really hard spot to be in. You need somebody who can hit some deep shots. Like even when Graham Mertz played very early in his career, you saw the arm talent, and that's what you need. You can't just rely on one dimensional quarterback play. There's a lot of room for growth, and he's grown tremendously. And I said this earlier in the week, but even having to read defenses and think about concepts, he didn't have to do it in high school. He's the best athlete on the field. He could out athlete everybody. He could make something out of nothing. And we saw that ability a few times, but you need more than that if you're going to be a high level quarterback and lead a team to more wins. So I think that they're in a spot now where he's going to be forced to play the next 3 games. It's going to allow you more opportunity to grade him and then determine after the season what you truly need. But I think that they've got issues moving forward about what they ought to do with quarterback play, because you can't win without the ability to throw down the field.
Yep. Overreaction or no? This team figured something out, and we can expect to see another win this year.
I mean, all along I've said, like, when we did our picks and Washington was 10.5-point favorite, I said, there's part of me that thinks Wisconsin will cover, but like, no, because you need to see it to believe it. I think we learned from year one, or we learned from going into year one, where you're just making these proclamations. But the fact that they've done this at least makes me think it's possible to replicate. It's just that formula, the margin for error is so slim. You need your defense to play lights out, because you just can't count on your offense to move the ball consistently enough to score points. They won this game with 13 points and 24 passing yards from the quarterback. So I'm open to the possibility. I'm not going to say it's going to happen against Indiana, but maybe Illinois at home or Minnesota, if the team can play with the type of fight and tenacity it demonstrated on Saturday. So it's not an overreaction. I just don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen, because the formula is so specific right now.
You mentioned the point spread. Do you know the last time that they won as a double-digit underdog?
I do not.
LSU back in 2016. They were I believe it's 12.5-point underdog. They've only won as a double-digit underdog 4 times, I think, since 1994. They beat Michigan on the road as a 14.5-point underdog. They went on the road and ended Penn State's long winning streak when they were 13.5-point underdogs. And in 2001, went to Ohio State and won as a 13-point underdog. So, yeah, quite a. It doesn't happen very often. So, at least that is notable. Ben says he can never wear the vest again, right?
Well, you asked him, and he had the vest on. It's just that he had a hoodie on over it for the military appreciation. I think it was a good look for Luke, and I think maybe you can buck tradition if you perform well. It's like anything else in sports. You win a game, so you don't shave or whatever it is that helps you win. It's a good look for him. I'll say that.
He joked that the vest is not something he's been thinking about here these last few weeks.
Yeah, he had some other issues on his hands.
It was not necessarily at the top of his list, but yes, I thought and that's why there were a lot of people talking about he can never wear it again. Maybe he never will. He was wearing it. You just couldn't see it, which maybe that's a good thing. Just wear something over it all the time. That it can't bother people if they can't see it. I highly doubt that he has any idea that. Well, he might after Halloween with some of the things that were. I don't know how you avoid that with some of the people, some of their costumes and that type of stuff. But I doubt he was very aware that people have such an issue with it.
Either
What
way,
do you think?
I think these coaches are sort of in their own bubble, and it serves them well to do that, especially when there's so much negativity surrounding the program and you. But he's got a new lease on life, man. And to start it off this way, you couldn't ask for a better spot, given where things have been.
These next 3 games, you just play your freshmen, young guys, and take the lumps so they get reps and game experience. Sam asks, question
Well,
mark.
you play the guys that you think are ready. I mean, they're not just going to they're not putting a freshman out there who hasn't played and isn't anywhere close to ready. I mean, the Carter Smith situation was a product of some desperation and you needed help. But yeah, I mean, the freshmen who have played, the young guys who have played, you continue to give them reps. But Wisconsin is also in trying to win the games they're going to play. So it's a delicate balance, but something to be said for giving a handful of guys an opportunity so you can see what they have if you think they're close or if you think they're ready, because red shirts are preserved unless some of these guys played a couple games early in the year. And I'd also say I don't even know how much you should worry about that, but I'd be open to seeing more young guys if they're close.
A couple more here. Overreaction or no, Wisconsin should simply just use a portion of their NIL to buy a few rain/snowmakers, mount them at the top of Camp Randall, and turn them on during home games.
Not an overreaction. Do it. If you're going to invest in all the resources and you say you're going to evaluate all the angles, this seems to work. It works for Wisconsin. The weather, it benefits Wisconsin. They're playing a lot of teams that like to spread it out and air it out. Didn't work for Oregon in Oregon when it was raining. Didn't work for Washington. And something magical does seem to happen when it's snowing in Camp Randall. The Melvin Gordon game, the Washington game. So I say, why not? If you've got the resources, maybe you could spend that extra $100,000 or so on a offensive lineman. Well, you need more than $100,000 probably, but just get the snow machines out and get wild.
I'll say this: like the second half was definitely impacted by the weather. I don't know that the first half was significantly impacted by it. But once it started snowing,
man, it was whipping around there.
It was. So I think it certainly did help a team that struggles to score the ball to keep the other team under wraps there. Are the people discussing whether Wisconsin should have rushed the field have no fun in them or just hate everything?
They hate everything and they have no fun in them. Yeah, I get it. Oh, it's a 3-6 program. Oh, big deal. This says how far Wisconsin has fallen. Well, yeah, they have fallen pretty far, and everybody should deserve the opportunity to celebrate a moment like this. And you could see the players too. I felt like from watching them, they didn't want to leave the field. They wanted to embrace this moment. They spent so long hoping and desperation for something like this. And for the guys who have been here forever, like Rico Hallman's talking about, he has mentioned this on multiple occasions for the last couple years. The last time Wisconsin won a big game, when beating a ranked opponent, when they beat number 9 Iowa in 2021, he's like, I wasn't a part of that game in terms of like helping the team, but he wanted to feel what that felt like. So I think it was great that the fans rushed the field, and damned if whatever the optics are, like, you needed a moment like this, and everybody felt it. Everybody felt the frustration and how much it sucked to have to watch the on-field product. So they should be able to take part in the celebration.
Yeah, it was a juiced up jump around. Haven't seen that against a Power 5 team in a long time. Both sides going at it. I love that. I love that Washington got involved. Great. Yeah, it was very good. It was great. And in the post game, going and storming the field, who cares? They haven't had a moment to celebrate like that in a long time. So, it's a 23. It's a horrible look. They are not a very good team. Why would you not go out and do something that you haven't done in 4 years? Who knows the next opportunity you're going to get? It was back when you beat Iowa. You're like, all right, well, they'll beat another ranked team here, and they'll potentially be in contention for the Big Ten here at some point, win a big game over a really good team. It didn't happen. Now here you have that opportunity, and being in the middle of that last night, the unbridled joy. Like when you have the opportunity to do that as a fan, do it. Who cares? Yeah. It's something that you remember, and I'm not going to care one iota about someone being on on a message board or not a message board on Facebook. I get a ton of comments on our post that we put up there being act like you've been there before and like stop it. Stop. These people are not very fun at parties, I guarantee it. And yes, you've fallen. Like Nebraska rushed the field against 5-6 Wisconsin last year. If you want to make fun of people for rushing the field, do that. Washington was 6-2 coming to this game. Wisconsin was Owens had lost 10 straight Big Ten games. It hadn't been a right team in 1,470 days. It's been a minute since they've had an opportunity. Let them do it. Who cares?
Yes, it was a collective cathartic release for everybody. And another thing that I would say is when these dudes look back on their college careers, a lot of them who are here have been through some misery. It's about ultimately when you look back on what you've done, it's about memories because you can't hang on to the however many tackles you had or this play. This is a memory that everyone's going to take with them forever. And frankly, it will probably be at the top if you're talking about individual games or moments, because everyone talks about locker room culture, being around my buddies, and that stuff's great. But this was a moment that all of these guys are going to be able to take with them forever. And that may sound silly. And you may say, well, it doesn't matter. The team stinks. It matters.
Just seeing the looks on those guys' faces on the field. It's been a really tough year. And for them to, and you saw the sideline explode when Mason Posa got him on the ground, right? So very impressive. Wisconsin will now hit the road, face Indiana coming up on Saturday. We'll talk about that game here as we get going. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Can.